Body Knows episode, 10 Recognizing Exit Points. Welcome back to the Body Knows. Over the last 9 episodes, we've been traveling together through the hidden architecture of behavior. We've looked at how the body tells stories beneath words, how the nervous system becomes the real judge of safety and danger, how manipulation twists signals, and how cracks in the script open the way to truth. In episode 9, we explored those cracks, the churn in the gut, the tightening of the jaw, the subtle unease that tells us something isn't right. We saw how hypocrisy, whether in leaders, groups, or relationships, is always betrayed by the body before it is ever admitted by the mind. We learned that those cracks are not weakness but resistance, the body's rebellion against illusion. And now we arrive here at the final step of this arc, because cracks are only the beginning. At some point, the whisper becomes a call to act. At some point, the nervous system doesn't just say, "This isn't right," it says, "You need to leave." This episode is about those moments, about exit points. We'll talk about what it feels like to step away from the group, the relationship, the ideology, or the system that once held you. We'll explore the paradox that leaving carries, the terror of stepping into the unknown, and the relief of finally honoring your truth. We'll unpack how the nervous system holds both at once, and why that paradox is so often the barrier that keeps people trapped. We'll look at the tools that help you notice those signals: tracking, journaling, naming the churns and the tensions. Because reclaiming trust in the body requires proof. It requires going back and saying, "Yes, every time I felt that unease, it pointed to something real." We'll also explore one of the deepest traps, the confusion between safety and suppression. Many people stay because compliance feels calmer. But what if that calm really collapses? What if what we call safety is actually the nervous system numbing itself to survive? And what if true safety, the kind that comes from authenticity, feels chaotic at first because it's alive, unmasked, unbound? As always, I'll weave in my own story. The moments I chose to walk away from groups that gossiped, from relationships that gaslit me, from systems that dressed manipulation as truth. I'll share how my body carried terror and relief at the same time, and how those exit experiences shaped the path I walk now. And finally, because this is the last episode of the Foundations of Behaviour arc, we'll pull everything together. From episode 1's exploration of behaviour itself, through the body as truth teller, through manipulation, gaslighting, cracks, and now to the choice to leave, we'll see the full arc. This episode isn't just a conclusion, it's an invitation to take what you've felt in your gut, what you've recognized in your body, and to trust it enough to act. To recognize the exit points in your own life, even if they come with terror, because they also carry the seed of freedom. The body always whispers first. Today, we listen for the moment when it doesn't just whisper, "This isn't right," but when it declares, "It's time to go." Let's begin. The anatomy of an exit. Leaving is never just a thought, it's a full body event. When you decide to step away from a group, a relationship, or a system, the nervous system lights up in ways that can feel contradictory, even overwhelming. Terror and relief collide inside you, and unless you understand what's happening, you might mistake the chaos of freedom for the danger of a mistake. Let's slow it down step by step. Step 1, the spark of decision. The exit begins with a crack, a churn in the gut, a tightening of the jaw, a whisper of "this doesn't fit." You may not even frame it as leaving at first. It feels like hesitation, like distance, like withdrawal. But the nervous system has already started preparing. The amygdala, always scanning for threat, sends out a warning. This place isn't safe. The prefrontal cortex wrestles with the implications. What would it mean if I walked away? The body holds both, flickering between tension and clarity. Step 2, the surge of terror. As the possibility of leaving grows clearer, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in. Adrenaline floods, the heart rate rises. Muscles are primed for fight or flight. This is the terror of stepping into the unknown. The group, even if toxic, has provided belonging. The relationship, even if abusive, has provided familiarity. The system, even if manipulative, has provided structure. Walking away threatens all of that, and the nervous system reacts as if you're stepping off a cliff. Breathing quickens. Palms sweat. The gut clenches tighter. It feels like danger because biologically, it is. Social exclusion once meant death. The nervous system remembers this even if the mind insists, "I'll be fine." Step 3, the wave of relief, but almost immediately another current arrives. As soon as you imagine yourself free, the parasympathetic system, the vagus nerve, especially begins to soften. The breath deepens. Shoulders drop. A strange calm cuts through the fear. This is the relief of alignment. For the first time in a long time, your body senses that the outer story might finally match the inner truth. The gut eases, the jaw loosens. A tear may even come, not from sadness, but from the sudden release of holding tension for so long. This paradox is why exits are so confusing. Terror and relief live in the same moment. Your nervous system is running both scripts at once. Step 4, the aftershock. Once the decision is made, the body doesn't instantly settle. It oscillates. One moment you feel free, the next you feel terrified. One moment you breathe easily, The next, your heart races. This is normal. It's the nervous system recalibrating. Leaving a toxic situation is like stepping out of a dark theatre into bright sunlight. The body squints, stumbles, and takes time to adjust. Sleep may be restless, appetite may swing, old doubts resurface, only to be met again by relief. Over days, weeks, months, the relief deepens and stabilizes. The terror lessens. But the first stage is always a storm of contradiction. Why many don't leave this paradox is also why so many people stay. The terror feels louder than the relief. The sympathetic surge screams, "This is dangerous," and the quieter vagal whisper of "this is right" gets drowned out. Without understanding this anatomy, people misinterpret the signals. They think the fear means they're making a mistake. They confuse the intensity of leaving with proof that staying is safer, but the truth is the opposite. The fear is the nervous system grieving old bonds. The relief is the nervous system celebrating new alignment. Both are true. Both are necessary. Philosophical lens philosophers have long described this paradox. Kierkegaard called it the dizziness of freedom, the vertigo you feel when you realize you can choose. Sartre described freedom as both liberation and burden, the terror of responsibility coupled with the relief of possibility. In the body, this philosophy is lived. The terror and the relief are not abstract. They are pulses in the vagus nerve, surges in the amygdala, and waves in the chest and gut. Personal echoes. I've lived this anatomy many times. When I left groups that turned toxic, my body shook with both fear and clarity. When I stepped out of relationships marked by gaslighting, my chest carried both panic and release. Each time, the nervous system surged, trembled, oscillated. But each time, the relief grew stronger the further I walked away. The terror wasn't proof that leaving was wrong. It was proof that I was human, that my nervous system was grieving old safety, even as it moved toward real safety. This is the anatomy of an exit: spark, terror, relief, aftershock. A whole body revolution that feels contradictory, but is in fact coherence returning. The body doesn't just whisper, "This isn't right." It also whispers, "You can leave." Scenario: leaving the group. Imagine this. You're sitting in the familiar circle of a group you've been part of for months, maybe years. The conversation swirls the way it always does: chatter, banter, the occasional sharpness when someone oversteps. On the surface, it looks like belonging. On the surface, it looks like safety. But your body disagrees. The moment of tension, someone makes a cutting remark, a jab dressed as a joke. The laughter that follows doesn't feel warm. It feels sharp, collusive. You notice a flicker in your chest, the tightening that signals unease. You try to brush it off, you smile. But the smile doesn't reach your eyes. Your jaw is already tense. Your shoulders pull up slightly. Then another remark lands, this time directed at someone else. The group laughs again. You don't. You feel your stomach churn. A thought passes through your mind. If they do this to them, they'll do it to me. It's not paranoia. It's neuroception. Your body scans the social environment and concludes, this isn't safe. The decision forming, you sit back, quieter now. The conversation continues, but you're no longer in sync. Mirror neurons that once pulled you into group synchrony now pull you into withdrawal. The exit hasn't happened yet, but the nervous system is already rehearsing it. Breath grows shallow. Muscles hold tension in case of confrontation. The prefrontal cortex whispers options. Maybe I should leave early tonight. The spark is there. The exit point is forming. The leap: someone looks at you, expecting a laugh or agreement. Instead, you feel the words rise. I'm heading off. You stand. In that moment, the body floods with contradiction. The sympathetic surge of terror. Heart pounding, hands trembling, sweat breaking. The parasympathetic release of relief. Shoulders dropping, exhale deepening, a sudden sense of space. It feels chaotic, terrifying, and freeing at once. The group reacts with confusion, maybe even subtle disapproval. A few ask why you're leaving so early. You smile, offer a vague excuse. But inside, your body is clear. I don't belong here anymore. I walk away. As you step outside, the air feels different, cooler, fresher. Your body releases what it was holding inside. You hadn't realized how shallow your breathing was until now. For a moment, panic flares. Did I just make a mistake? Will they talk about me after I leave? But then the relief returns. The world feels bigger, wider. Your chest loosens. Tears prick your eyes, not sadness, but the aftershock of release. This is the paradox of leaving: terror and relief. Fear of exclusion, joy of authenticity. Both true, both alive in the same body. Personal reflection echo. I've lived this exact scenario. The group that turned cold, the sideways glances, the laughter that felt more like knives than warmth. I remember sitting in the tension, my nervous system shrinking in on itself, before clarity finally came. If they gossip about others, they'll gossip about me. And when I finally stepped away, the same contradiction lived in me. The terror of being alone, the relief of being free, the heartbreak of losing belonging, the joy of reclaiming truth. It was never simple. It never will be. But the body was clear before the mind was brave enough to act. What the body shows us leaving a group is not just a social act. It is a physiological drama. The body carries every stage: the unease of tension, the preparation for withdrawal, the surge of terror at stepping out, the flood of relief when alignment returns, the oscillation of panic and calm as the aftershock settles. This is why recognizing exit points matters, not because leaving is easy, but because the body gives you the roadmap. The churn, the tension, the breath, they aren't noise, they're signals, and when you follow them, they don't just tell you when to leave, they show you how to survive leaving. This is the anatomy of an exit made real: a chair scraped back, a door walked through, a nervous system trembling with both terror and relief. The crack has widened, the script is no longer binding, the body has spoken, and you've listened. Personal reflection, walking away, again and again. When I talk about exit points, I'm not speaking in theory. I'm speaking from lived experience. From the ache in the gut, the tremor in the chest, the dizzying paradox of stepping out of places that once felt like home. Again and again, I've had to learn that leaving isn't weakness, it's survival. It's authenticity. It's freedom, even when it hurts. And maybe the best way to honor this final reflection is to walk you through the exits that shaped me. Not only the big dramatic ones, but the quiet ones too. Because every time the body knew before the mind. Every time the nervous system whispered before the words came. Childhood. Exits I couldn't make as a child. I often felt trapped in systems I couldn't leave. Home, school, they were worlds I had no choice but to inhabit. But my body told me over and over again that I didn't belong in the scripts I was being forced to play. I remember the meltdowns, moments of sheer frustration when the weight of demands and expectations became too much. Adults saw anger, defiance, and bad behavior, but inside it was survival. My nervous system had been stretched too far, suppressed too many times. The outbursts were the only way the trapped energy could escape. And afterwards, days of recovery. My body exhausted, my mind spinning, my chest heavy. Nobody saw that part. They remembered the meltdown, but not the long shadow it cast. I was double punished, once for having the meltdown, again for being misunderstood and invalidated afterwards. Other times I froze. I remember going mute under pressure. People would demand, "What's wrong? Say something." But I couldn't. The words simply would not come. My nervous system had collapsed into freeze, shutting down the speech centers. And the more people pressed me, the more painful it became. Those were exit points I couldn't take. My body wanted out, but as a child I had no power to leave the systems I was trapped in. So I carried the tension inside me. I carried the knowledge that what adults called safety was really suppression. Adolescence. Exits that woke me up. In my teenage years, the cracks grew wider. Groups of friends became a mirror of society, full of competition, gossip, and backstabbing. I remember walking into a room one night, sensing the tension before anyone said a word. Someone had been rude earlier in the evening, and the whole group carried the aftershock. The moment I sat down, I felt it. My body pulled back. I joined in less, spoke less, and observed more. Then came the outburst, one person lashing out, everyone else glancing at each other in silent judgment. The tension broke only when that person left, but what followed chilled me more than the outburst itself. The gossip, the analysis, the tearing apart of people not even present. And in that moment, clarity hit me. If they do this to others, they will do it to me. My gut churned, my shoulders tensed, my intuition whispered, "Leave." It took time for me to act on that whisper, but eventually I did. And when I learned later that they had been talking about me behind my back, I realized something crucial. My body hadn't lied. The churn wasn't paranoia, it was a prophecy. That night marked one of the first times I recognized an exit point, not only in hindsight, but in the moment. My nervous system knew, and this time I listened. Adulthood. Exits from relationships. In adulthood, the stakes of leaving grew sharper. I found myself in relationships marked by gaslighting, manipulation, and triangulation. There was one in particular where I began to record conversations just to protect myself. I needed proof of what was happening because my partner's gaslighting was so severe that it made me question my own reality. I would play the recordings back, hear their words, their contradictions, the shifting of stories. I thought showing the evidence would bring clarity. Instead, I was met with dismissal, avoidance, and further invalidation. What shocked me most wasn't just the lies. It was the gaslighting of the gaslighting. The denial not only of actions, but of the very act of denial itself. It was like being trapped in a hall of mirrors, every reflection distorted, every step destabilized. My nervous system paid the price. The constant activation, the cortisol spikes, the sleepless nights, the crash into exhaustion after each episode. The body says this isn't safe, this isn't love, this is survival at best, destruction at worst. The exit point took time, but when it came, it carried the same paradox. Terror, the fear of being alone, the grief of breaking bonds, and relief, the breath returning, the chest loosening, the sudden clarity of being free from the cycle of abuse. Looking back, I can see how systemic it all was. The same conditioning that kept me compliant as a child showed up in my adult relationships. The same confusion of suppression with safety, the same willingness to silence myself for calm. Each exit was a confrontation, not only with the person, but with the patterns I carried from childhood. Exits from systems, the political cracks, it wasn't only personal. I saw the same dynamics in politics, media, and society at large. Leaders are saying one thing while doing another. Narratives that painted ordinary people as villains, dissenters as extremists, truth-tellers as liars. I remember watching Keir Starmer dismiss protesters as far-right. My chest tightened, my gut churned, because I knew protecting livelihoods, families, and communities isn't extremism. It's human. The nervous system picked up what the narrative tried to conceal: hypocrisy. The same gaslighting I'd experienced in relationships now scaled up to a national level. It was a collective exit point, a moment when many people's bodies whispered, "This isn't right." Some stayed, silenced by fear of exclusion. Others, like me, felt the whisper turn into clarity. I need to step away from this illusion, this script, this manipulation. That's why I created the Inversiverse, to map out these techniques of indoctrination and control, to show how collective nervous systems are manipulated, and to create space for others to recognize their own exit points. Exit into self. But maybe the hardest exits weren't from groups or relationships or systems. Maybe the hardest were from myself, or at least from the scripts I had inherited and internalized. The script that said I was too sensitive, too defiant, too much. The script that said compliance was safety, silence was love, and collapse was peace. The script that punished me twice, once for feeling, again for expressing. Leaving those scripts has been the longest journey. And it hasn't been one dramatic exit, but 1,000 small ones. Each time, I honor the churn instead of dismissing it. Each time I walk away from suppression instead of mistaking it for safety. Each time I write down what my body whispers and let it count as truth. This is the slow reclamation of trust. The rewriting of the inner story. The recognition that my body wasn't broken, my behavior wasn't bad, my exits weren't betrayals. They were surviving, they were wise. The terror and relief of exit, every exit has carried the same paradox. Terror and relief, panic and freedom. The nervous system is trembling with both fight-flight and rest-release. And each time the mind has wanted to mistake the terror for danger. Each time the group or partner or system has told me the relief was selfishness, the exit was a betrayal. But the body has always known better. The churn in the gut, the jaw unclenches when I leave, the breath returns when I step outside. These are not accidents, they are the compass. Why exits matter? Because exits aren't only about walking away from toxic people or systems. They are about walking toward authenticity. They are about reclaiming the nervous system's signals as trustworthy. They are about saying, I will not confuse suppression with safety ever again. And this is why journaling, reflection, and embodied practices matter so much, because each record becomes proof. Proof that the churn was real, the crack was true, the exit was necessary. Proof that the body always whispers first, and the whisper can be trusted. Closing reflection. So when I think about exit points now, I don't just think about dramatic moments of walking out of rooms or relationships. I think about the small, daily acts of listening, the micro-exits from self-doubt, from suppression, from the old scripts that once kept me silent. Because each time I honor the whisper, I'm building a new pattern. Each time I choose relief over collapse, I'm building trust. Each time I leave what doesn't fit, I'm stepping closer to what does. And maybe that's the ultimate exit, not just leaving groups or partners or systems, but leaving behind the belief that my body couldn't be trusted. Now I know, the body knows, it always has. Pulling the arc together, the body always knows. We've walked a long road together in this first arc of The Body Knows. From the Foundations of Behaviour in episode 1, we began by asking what behaviour really is, not just a set of actions, but a living dialogue between the nervous system, the body, and the world. We looked at how the body isn't passive, it's active, responding in real time to every demand, every threat, every opportunity for connection. In episode 2, we turned to the body as truth teller. We saw how the nervous system, through neuroception, becomes the real judge of safety and danger. We explored fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, not as abstract categories, but as lived realities. And we saw how, even in moments of manipulation or seduction, the body still whispers the truth. Episode 3 took us into social punishment and control, shame, exclusion, and silence. We saw how the vagus nerve and social fear keep us in line, and how groups use coldness and ridicule to keep individuals compliant. My own story of walking into a room thick with tension showed how the body reads the atmosphere long before words are spoken. Episode 4 asked us to look at the language of behaviour itself, how systems redefine compliance as good and resistance as bad, how masking is praised while authenticity is punished. We explored how words moralise nervous system signals, twisting biology into morality. Then episode 5, Pleasure, Pain and the Dopamine Trap, we explored how reward and punishment shape behaviour, how cults and narcissists alike manipulate by alternating love bombing with withdrawal. We unpacked how addictive those cycles can become, and how they hijack the body's reward circuitry. Episode 6 took us into gaslighting the body. We traced how abusers teach people to distrust their own signals, and how that conflict between felt truth and imposed narrative tears the nervous system apart. I shared my own experience of recording conversations just to prove to myself what I already knew in my gut. In episode 7, we explored the mirror of others, mirror neurons, and group synchrony. We saw how conformity spreads somatically, how watching someone break and apologize can ripple through the nervous system of the entire group. Episode 8 gave us the mask and the freeze, dissociation, shutdown, masking as survival. We unpacked how children and adults alike freeze under pressure, how masking protects but costs authenticity, and how meltdown and collapse often follow. In episode 9, we found the cracks in the script, those micro moments when the body whispers leave even as the mind insists stay. We examined hypocrisy, manipulation, and the churn of doubt that sneaks in through sensation before belief. And now here in episode 10, we've recognized the exit points. We've slowed down the anatomy of leaving, the spark, the terror, the relief, the aftershock. We've seen how suppression masquerades as safety, and how journaling, tracking, and personal reflection help us reclaim trust. We've pulled it all together into a simple, profound truth the body always knows. A closing reflection for the arc think back across these 10 episodes. Where did you feel the strongest resonance? Which scenarios mirrored your own life? Which body signals have you begun to notice more clearly? The arc we've just completed isn't just theory, it's a mirror for your lived experience. I hope that as you've listened, you've begun to recognize your own cracks, your own masks, your own exit points, because the work now is not just listening to me, but listening to yourself, looking ahead. But of course, the journey doesn't end here. Exit points are not the final destination. They are the threshold. In our next episode, we'll begin a new chapter. Episode 11, When the Past Won't Stay Past. We'll ask, what comes after the exit? What happens when the old script collapses, when the body is free from suppression, but not yet settled into new belonging? It's one thing to leave. It's another to live in the aftermath, to carry the terror and relief forward into a life of authenticity. And that's where we're headed next. I thank you for journeying with me through the Foundations of Behaviour arc of The Body Knows. This has been a series about truth beneath illusion, biology beneath morality, and survival beneath suppression. And remember, the cracks, the signals, the exits, they're not random. They're your body guiding you home. James Miller.